Fire Call, the fire safety show with Division Chief Jim Sideras.
Welcome to Fire Call. We're going to take you behind the scenes of Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. My name's Division Chief Jim Sideras, and we're with the crews that just got hired, and they're doing some training. And these are going to be the future firefighters for Sioux Falls Fire Rescue. Can't say enough good things about them, and if you stay watching the show, you're actually going to interview a couple of them. Got some questions, got some shout-outs. And our first question shout-out comes from, and this is unbelievable, Sander van Holt. He's a captain at the Rotterdam Fire Department in the Netherlands. And he wants to get a patch. Well, we don't give out patches anymore. Patch on the shirt, couple issues. National security, we don't want people running around with our patches. Gets to be pretty expensive sending out patches. So we can't do that, but we can give you a shout-out. And you want a shout out to the Mesa Fire Department in Mesa, Arizona, Station 208. So that's going out to them, but we'll send you the shirt if we have your address. Got another shout out to, this one is to Edward. Edward lives in Plantation, Florida, and he wants a shout out to Station 13 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, right near the beach. Hey, we got to do some type of training exchange maybe, especially around December. Don't just send me the shout-outs. I want some good stuff from Fort Lauderdale. And we have another shout-out. This one is from Kevin. Kevin lives in West Milford, New Jersey, and he wants a shout-out, and I got to take a big breath for this one, to the Greenwood Forest Volunteer Fire Company, West Milford Fire Department, number 3, near West Milford, New Jersey. Now, if we use your shout out or all the questions we use in the show, you'll get a sassy Fire Call Sioux Falls Fire Rescue t-shirt. Everybody wants them, but only a few people get them. So you just send in your stuff. Now, turn off all that computer stuff, shut down your cell phone, tell the kids to be quiet, get some popcorn, sit back, and watch the rest of Fire Call. It seems like everybody wants to know about fire helmets, and they're the coolest thing firefighters got. And they got a lot of questions about firefighters' helmets. We're going to cover those, and they're from all over the world. This first question is from Josh. Josh lives in Chuleta, Florida, and he wants to know, what's the difference between a modern-style fire helmet and the traditional-style fire helmet? Well, the modern-style fire helmet is kind of like this. Smooth, round, lower center of gravity, big shields in the front. The traditional style looks more like this. And when they call it traditional, because it looks like a traditional fire helmet. When fire helmets are designed, they have this long brim. And that long brim is to keep hot water going down your back instead of your shirt, going down the back of your coat, getting your back all wet, sheds that water off. These sit a little higher, but they look like the original fire helmets. We have some of the original old fire helmets here to show you. So that's the big difference in fire helmets. A lot of firefighters like the traditional fire helmets. As a matter of fact, our firefighters love them, and we switched to traditional style fire helmets. This question is from Matt. Matt, you didn't put where you're from, so I can't announce it. And you know what that means? You don't get a t-shirt unless we figure out where you're from. He wants to know, do you still use leather fire helmets, or do you use all composite? Well, composite ones are made out of plastic. Composite, strong, and it turns out the old leather ones, and this is an old leather helmet, the old leather ones didn't have the impact resistance, they weren't as tough, and you can see this old one, your head is actually sitting on leather. There's not even a suspension system. So these are the old leather ones. But what Matt wants to know is, do you still use leather? And the question is yes. This is my helmet, and it's leather. And you can tell the difference in size because this has all crush-resistant styling. Inside it has impact-resistant liners. So this meets all the new standards for fire helmets, made out of traditional leather. A little heavier, but golly, who doesn't want to wear a leather fire helmet just like they wore 100 years ago? So yeah, you can get leather, much more expensive, and but it is the true traditional look of a fire helmet. You know, another thing we have too that we switched to is the shields of a fire helmet. And you can see the shield is this part right here. And this says who you are, what department you're with. Sometimes it will say your rank. We have different styles. Sassy Jims. You know, if we look at, this is a captain's, says where he's from, badge number, and his name on it. So you can get different things in the shields of your helmets. Okay. 2 questions. And these 2 questions, one's from Art. Art lives in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And the other one is from Kelix. And Kelix lives in Puerto Rico. Actually lives in Carolina, Puerto Rico. And they both want to know, as far as helmets goes, why do chief fire officers wear white? Well, it goes back to tradition. You can see this is way back, old helmet, new style. They're both white for chief officers. The big reason is you can spot the chief officers anywhere on the fire ground. Nice, clean, sassy helmet. So that identification is really important. Plus, chiefs shouldn't be having dirty helmets. The reason why some of our firefighters, the traditional color for firefighters is black, is because they're around a lot of soot, a lot of smoke, can't keep their helmets that clean. Chief officers ought to be having some pretty clean helmets. They also want to know what do the fire helmet colors signify, and why are there different colored helmets? Well, we know chief officer is white. Traditionally, firefighters wear black helmets. Firefighters and drivers wear black helmets. You look on the fire ground, you can tell right away who the worker guys are. A lot of times their shields will be different. For us, green shields mean they're recruits. If they have white shields or red shields, they're drivers. So black helmets. The red helmets, traditional color for red is captains. These are the station officers. They're the ones that are leading their troops into these fires and watching out what's going on. They're the ones that really are the leadership of that fire department in a major fire, because they're in command of those firefighters. And we even have some different style fire helmets. This one's from one of our firefighters, Travis. He's with one of the USAR teams, the Iowa Task Force Rescue Team. He has a helmet built in with a light. These helmets are a lot smaller, a lot lighter, so those guys can dig through those holes and get into real tight areas. This is another style. This is another style USAR helmet, much lighter than structural firefighting. So there's a lot of different variations of those fire helmets. And the last question about helmets is, this is from Jeff. Jeff lives in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And he wants to know, when do firefighters need to replace helmets? Well, a lot of firefighters keep their helmets almost their whole career. Some even purchase their helmets when they retire so they can have their original helmets. So unless that helmet's been exposed to a lot of heat where it's damaged the helmet, in some cases melted that helmet, or for leather helmets, when they start getting too beat up and they're actually wearing holes through the leather, got to replace it. Or worst case scenario, your helmet gets run over by a fire truck. This one accidentally got ran over. Firefighter wasn't in it. That's the good news. But you can see, if you take off the shell of this helmet, the padding for crush resistance, and there's an inner liner. All that, we have to think about our firefighters. Ceilings falling down, steel falling down. We want that impact resistant. And you can see here that it did not penetrate inside that helmet. This is a full-size fire truck running over one of the helmets. So it does do some serious damage. But that's why we look at all that new style fire helmets. And that's the same thing. If we get leathers, we all have to meet the standards for helmets. And if you look on the inside, you can see the style. This is a 1010. This is a N5A. So we can all look at helmets, and everyone wants to know what they do, why they're important. And they're just one more piece of equipment that keeps us safe but makes us pretty recognizable in the community. Everyone wants to meet our new firefighters. We've got a new crop of fire recruits from all over the upper Midwest, and the one we're going to introduce you to first is Tony Bivens. Tony just got hired, second week on the job.
Yep.
What do you think?
I love it.
Love being a firefighter?
Yep. It's been a lot of good experiences for us, and I'm learning a lot. I didn't have a big background in the fire service career.
Now, what did you do before you got hired here?
I worked for a lawn care company in
Okay.
Omaha, Nebraska, and I went to school at University Nebraska at Omaha.
For what?
Fire protection
Okay.
technology.
So you were looking to be you were looking to be a firefighter.
Yes.
We
yes.
just got lucky and got you first.
Yep. Yep.
And how old are you?
I'm 25.
And now everyone's going to say, guy from Omaha, why did you come to Sioux Falls? Why do you want to be a Sioux Falls firefighter?
I heard a lot of people tell me a lot of good things about Sioux Falls and the surrounding communities, and I just, it was closer to where I'd live, so this was an easy place for me to come up
Where are you
and
from
test.
originally?
I'm from Pierce, Nebraska.
Okay.
It's right by Norfolk, Nebraska.
So what advice would you give someone? Now you've been through CPAT, you've been through interviews, you've been through BPAT, you've been through the whole process.
Yep.
Got to the top. What advice would you give someone trying to get hired, wants to be a firefighter out there?
Definitely keep yourself in shape. And I think it definitely helps to go through the testing process once. If you don't make it, just make sure you go right back and do it again, because going through that first time, it's going to make you all that much better the second time to do it.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Tony, and good luck in your new
All
career.
right. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Here's another cream of the crop recruit. This is Mike Cross. Mike Cross comes from Duluth, Minnesota.
Duluth, Minnesota.
Now give us your background. How old are you?
24.
And what did you do before you became a firefighter?
Well, before here, I did a lot of different things.
Yeah, I know the list is long and distinguished, but fire away.
Delivered pizza. I went to school to be a firefighter. I worked
Where'd you go to school at?
Lake Superior College in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
And then I went to school at UMD for a little while. I delivered pizza. I worked for the DNR as a wildland firefighter. I switched my job recently to a firefighter in the Air Guards. And I worked at a paper mill and a bunch
You
of
did
other
everything.
jobs. Yeah, not much of a life for a while.
Are you still in the Guard?
Yes, sir.
Did you transfer down?
Not yet. Working on that.
Okay. Well, you happy to be here? Happy to get hired?
Yes, I am.
What advice would you have? You've gone through the process, made it to the top, got hired. What advice would you give to those people out there? We always get questions. How do I become a firefighter? What advice would you give someone if they're thinking about being a firefighter?
For me, I tried to get experience in as many aspects as possible to have a broad resume, and definitely practice interviewing questions in the mirror by yourself and everything. And
You never know when you're going to be on camera getting questions fired off at you.
And just go out and test in places you think you'd be interested to live.
And stay in pretty good shape.
In definitely good shape.
And stay out of trouble.
Exactly.
Great. Mike, thanks
Well,
a lot.
thank you.
You bet. Got a couple great questions about standpipes. The first one's from Sean. Sean lives in Warminster, Pennsylvania. He wants to know, what is a standpipe? I see them on buildings. Don't know what they are. And another similar question is from Tim. Tim lives in Wayne, New Jersey, and he wants to know, in your area, are there standpipes inside of buildings? What do you do with them? And I got the perfect person to answer this question, Battalion Chief Steve Dirksen. Steve, welcome.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me.
And standpipes. Now, we have one out here. Kind of give us a rundown of what they are and how would we use them? Why are they important to firefighters?
Okay, well, a standpipe basically is, I know you've talked on your show before about 5-inch hose being the water main connection to our truck. Well, basically what the standpipe then is, we're going to have the water main hooked up into the building, pumped from our truck. And what it does, it'll supply water right into the building, usually within a staircase.
Not to the sprinkler system.
Not to the sprinkler system. It's going to be in the staircase, where inside they're going to have a connection where we can hook up to the pipe with a gated Y valve, and then we can hook up our hose to that and actually fight the fire on the floor. So we basically have the water main right there outside the door on the floor.
So we're pull the truck up, hook up to the standpipes, and then we can just basically haul all the gear up to the fire floor, right below the fire floor, and carry on our operations there.
Absolutely. We'll be taking basically our 1 3/4 or our 2.5-inch hose, hooking that right up to the standpipe system, going in, fighting the fire right there. We've got the water supply right there. We don't have to stretch any additional hose.
Let's take a look at one of these standpipes from the inside. Okay, Steve, so this is the inside. We're in a stairwell. This is the inside standpipe.
Yep, right here, and then we have a connection right here where we take our gated Y. Crews will come in, they'll hook this gated Y right up to here to the threads, spin it on, get it good and tight. Then what happens is
then they'll turn this on.
They'll turn this on, making sure that the valve is closed. They'll hook their hose up to this. And then what they'll do is they'll take the hose up a floor.
So the fire would be above us right now.
The fire's going to be above us. We always hook this into the floor below the fire.
Why do we do that?
Because it's safety. Number one, we always want to do everything safe as possible, and to stay out of any smoke or heat, and we don't want to have all kinds of stuff cluttered us right outside the door.
There you go. A lot of people want to know about fire hydrants. You either got one in your neighborhood, got one in front of your house, nice to know about them. And one of our most common questions, and I got one here from John in Sioux Falls, got one from Dina, and Dina didn't tell us where Dina lives. Christopher in Aiken, South Carolina. And finally, Scott. Scott lives in Rock Rapids, Iowa. They all want to know about colors of fire hydrants. Well, in some cities, the hydrants or the caps are painted different colors so that firefighters know how much water pressure they have. You might live in a community that has really poor water pressure, so you might paint those different colors. Well, John wants to know specifically, why are fire hydrants in Sioux Falls painted yellow instead of the traditional red? Great question. Well, for us, somehow we started on yellow. It's easier for us to see at night, and that's a critical factor for us. When we start thinking about high stressors at night, trying to find these fire hydrants, yellow was a lot easier to see. Now we're using some reflective markings that even makes it easier. So for us, time is really critical. So that's about the color of fire hydrants. Abby. Abby lives in Chancellor, South Dakota. And Abby wants to know what pressure the water is coming out of our hydrants in Sioux Falls. Abby, I would never expect a question like that. Our pressures range anywhere from 50 pounds per square inch all the way up to almost 100 pounds coming out of the hydrants. So we have great water pressure in Sioux Falls. Another reason it's great to live here, great public works, all comes together and makes it a safer place to live. This question is from Matthew. Matthew lives in San Jose, California, and he wants to know, do we use wet or dry barrel hydrants? Good question. People are going to wonder about that. The difference is between wet and dry is if they're a wet barrel hydrant, that means this whole thing is full of water. It's wet. Normally you're going to find those in places where it doesn't freeze. Southern California, Arizona, Texas. They don't have to worry about the freezing problems that the rugged Midwesterners have to worry about. Dry barrels mean this is all dry. If we pop off this cap right now, take a look, and you will see that this is a dry barrel. The reason we have to have dry barrel hydrants is in the wintertime, if this was full of water, it would freeze. So it's not full of water. It drains itself out after we turn these off, but it's important for us not to freeze these hydrants. So that's the difference. Wet, they always got water in them. You see them, people crashing in fire hydrants, the water shoots out. Most of those are in California. And we have another question is, why, and this one's from Craig. Craig lives in Petwana, Ontario, Canada. And he wants to know, why doesn't the water in fire hydrants freeze? Well, these go down under the frost line. They go underground to the water main. The water main is so far underground that it doesn't freeze. So the water is cold, but it doesn't freeze. So when these drain down, there's no water because these are dry barrel hydrants, probably like you got in Canada. Drains back, and then when we need it again, we can turn on. The water is underground, probably about 55 degrees. We don't have to worry about that. But that's a good question, Craig, and hope you keep watching up in Canada. And this is our last question. No, second to last question about hydrants. Do you put a gate on a hydrant? What's a gate? Well, you saw the gates. We use these gates on standpipes, and these are gates, okay? And what they are is a very simple device, different sizes. We can put this on a hydrant, spin it on, turn the hydrant on, and with these we can actually open them and close them and control water coming out from the hydrant. So we don't necessarily have to shut the hydrant down if we want to shut a single line down. A lot of times we'll use gates. You might want to use these if we're filling up fire trucks with water, really a little grass fire, something going on. Now, when I started, you always had to pull, it was called pull the steamer. We really didn't have those big 5-inch lines back then. You know, this stuff is all new technology, space age hose. What we had is we had these things called steamers. And we would put the steamers right over the 5-inch. Okay, we'd throw a steamer on there, and then we'd charge the hydrant. We'd hook the hoses, we'd hook 2.5s up, and we'd always leave these closed. And if we needed more hose, we would just put another 2.5, and then turn them on, much like this. And that's what we used to use, but now with this space-age new hose, we can hook a 5-inch right on there, and they work perfect. So we're not using the steamers nearly as much as we did 25 years ago. Got one last question. This is a really good question. Sometimes we're throwing out fire terminology and we forget, and you might not know what we're talking about. This question is from Ing, and Ing lives in Singapore. All around the world. Hope things are safe for you there, and glad you're watching, probably watching online. He said, what do you guys mean when you say charge the line? Well, what we mean when firefighters say charge the line, they want that line coming off the truck, off the hydrant. Charge it means turn it and fill it full of water. So a charged line is a line full of water, and a lot of times you'll just hear charge that line. That means turn on the water. So I hope that answered your question. I'm glad you're watching from Singapore, and you know, feel free to keep firing out those questions. If we can help you, by gosh, we want to know about it. So that wraps up Hydrants and Gates. We have Fire Chief Don Hill with us, as Don's going to give us the new news on reaccreditation and the reaccreditation process.
Well, Sioux Falls Fire Rescue was recently reaccredited. Accreditation is a process where you are evaluated against local and national standards to see how you measure up and how good your planning process is, how good your response is. And every 5 years you go through a process to be accredited. Our first accreditation was in 2003, and at that time there were about 100 departments in the United States that were accredited, and now there are still less than 150.
Yeah, I think it was actually, when the last time we looked, like 127.
I think it was 127 when we were going to Denver, yes.
Now, people are going to ask, what's the benefits of having an accredited department?
The main benefit of accreditation is for the citizens to know that their fire department is performing according to standards and planning adequately and adjusting responses and adjusting their programs to meet national standards and to meet good performance standards on a local level.
And then they bring in the accreditation team. Do you want to talk about that? It's not us saying, oh, this is a great department.
Right. Accreditation, it takes about a year to prepare for an accreditation team to come to your city to evaluate you. And then they're here for about 4 days, and they evaluate absolutely everything about your department. And it's a very, very difficult process, and it's a very rewarding process as well. We use the information we get for accreditation for planning, for budgeting, for future stations, for how we respond to emergencies.
So that's a great thing.
It's a great thing.
Now, this next question's from Michael. Michael lives in Sherwood, Oregon, and he wants to know specifically about what are ISO ratings, how can they affect the level on the department, and what's our ISO rating?
ISO stands for Insurance Services Office, and they evaluate communities for fire protection. And the insurance industry uses their service to determine rates for your community. And the ratings go from 1 to 11, with 1 being the best and 11 being no protection, basically no fire protection. Our ISO rating is 3, and that's evaluated about every 10 years. And when there's an evaluation, ISO comes in, they evaluate your fire department, including how many stations you have, where they are, what kind of fire trucks you use, what's on the fire trucks, how many people you have on your department, how many people respond to emergency, what your level of training is. And they also evaluate your water department, because fire protection is more than just fire departments.
Gotta
it's
get
also
water to the fire.
Water, and your communication system as well. And all those things go into an ISO rating. And as I said, Sioux Falls is a rating of 3. We're scheduled for an evaluation in the next couple of years, and we are hopeful and optimistic that that we would go to a level 2.
Oh, great.
Rating of 2.
Well, that'll be coming up, I'm sure, in one of the next future questions. This one's from James. James lives in Corsica, South Dakota. And James looks like he wants to be a firefighter. He wants to know, after high school, what kind of education would help me best for getting hired with the fire department. Now, keeping in mind we're also looking at EMTs, but what advice would you give someone out there, maybe a high schooler, maybe someone just out of high school, to best chance of getting hired?
Well, in Sioux Falls, which isn't the case in every city, you have to be 21 to be hired. And we have put into place, beginning next year, that you have to be an EMT to be hired. So that is an essential factor. You have to be 21, you have to be an EMT. Obviously, if you're coming out of high school, it's going to be a while before
Sure.
you're 21. I always advise people to get a good general education. Get a 4-year degree if you can. We can teach you the firefighting skills, but a 4-year degree is going to serve you on the fire service and everywhere else. And it's very competitive to get on our department. We have had the last couple of tests, 400 and 600 people apply, so it's difficult to get hired. And that edge of having a college degree and learning the skills that you learn to complete your degree is going to help you get hired.
So a degree in anything?
I would say a degree in anything
There
would
we go.
help you.
These 3 questions are all roughly the same. One's from Cody in Albany, New York. One's from Ryan. Ryan lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And this one is from Evan, and Evan lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And they want to know specifically how many EMS calls do you go on, fire, EMS, and then break it down to structure fires for us for a year.
Sure. We have, Sioux Falls is a city of about 150 to 160,000 people. The number's going up, 3 to 5,000 people a year. And we have about 9,000 calls a year. And of those calls, a little over half of those are EMS calls. So we're over 4,500 EMS calls a year. As far as fires, a city our size should expect a little over 600 fires per year.
So 2 a day.
Yep, roughly about 2 a day. And we have about 1 a day in Sioux Falls, about 1 fire a day. In the last 5 years, 4 out of those 5 years, we've had between 353 and 355 fires.
Now, what would you attribute that to? Why are we lower than the average? This is a good thing for the citizens, but what do you think? Why do you think that happens?
I
Besides
think one
the great
of,
training.
But that doesn't. The training doesn't cut down on the number of fires. It speaks to how well we control them. But one of the things I think is really key is our education program is very, very good with our kids. We touch bases with for education all of the preschool, kindergarten through 5th grade students in Sioux Falls every year for fire education.
And we just saw them all running through the stations now.
That's right, and we have been doing that for several years, for a lot of years, and I think that contributes positively to our fire loss in Sioux Falls. It's difficult to measure that. In fact, I'm not sure you can come up with how many fires you prevented by doing that, but when you compare Sioux Falls with about 350 fires to other communities our size with over 600, there's probably a great benefit there.
You bet. Well, Don, thanks a lot, and we're going to ask more questions next time.
Okay, great.
Well, I hope you liked the show, and I got so many questions about those hydrants, helmets. I think we got them covered for now. Got to thank the chief for spending some time with us. You got to meet some of the new guys. What more could a person want? Except more shout-outs. 3 more shout-outs, and this first shout-out goes to Derek. Derek lives in Saline, Michigan, and he wants a shout-out to the Saline Area Fire Department and also the Northville Fire Explorers. And he loves the show. That always helps move you to the top of the list. Not really, but it'll make him feel good. This one's from Nick. Nick lives in Butte, Montana. He wants a shout out to his fire department, the racetrack. So we weren't sure quite where that's at, Nick, but Nick just got his first structure fire. Nick, I hope you're liking the job being a firefighter. Our last shout out is from Thomas. Thomas lives in Salem, Ohio, and he wants a shout out to the men and women serving on the Damascus Volunteer Fire Department in Damascus, Ohio. And he's proud of that department, and we're proud of all the firefighters across the country. They're doing a heck of a good job. The men and women serving every day, day in and day out, to keep everybody safe and sound. Now, if we use your question, we do use your shout out, of course, like I told you, this is all the bling we can offer you. But darn it, you got to wear it with pride because it's from Sioux Falls Fire Rescue, one of the best departments in the country. My name is Division Chief Jim Sideras, and you've been watching Fire Call.